Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Love is a fundamental and basic element of life. It is an emotion, it is trust, it is a moving force of life. The greatest thinkers and saviors of the world have talked about love. They have expanded the horizons of love beyond loving one's own family, friends, and favorite things because love is not just a feeling, it is a positive force. Love is not weak, love is not feeble, love is not soft because it is the cause of everything that is positive and good on this earth. Love is the motivation, love is the destiny. It should be the path, it should be the means. Likewise, the force of love is invisible to us, but its power is in fact far greater than any of the nature's powerful forces. Take a moment to think about it. What would be the world without love? First of all, none of us would have existed. None of our family and friends would have been born either. If the forces of love ceased today, the entire human race would decrease and eventually die out. This is on the emotional level. On the pragmatic front, every single invention, every single discovery, and human creation came from the love in a human heart. If it were not for the love of the Wright brothers, none of us would have flown in the aeroplane. If it were not for the love of inventions, we would not have seen major breakthroughs in science. Without the love of the architects and builders, there would be no homes, buildings, or cities. Without love, there would be no medicines and doctors. There would be no teachers, schools, or education. There would be no books, no paintings, or music because all these things are created from the positive force of love and passion for the field where they wanted to prosper. As the great poet Robert Browning once said, take away love and the earth is a tomb. This exam is a beautiful journey. Start loving it. Fall in love with it. Feel it. Expand the horizons of your knowledge. Trust me, it is the love for the service of India that will unlock the gates of Labasna. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article speaks about the Nirbhaya Fund. 2012. A heinous gang rape was committed on a paramedical student in a moving bus. This dastardly, evil attack shook the conscience of the entire nation. There were agitations, protests seeking answers for some unanswered questions of women objectification and perpetration of violence on women. This was condemned across the breadth and length of India. One such tool to provide help to women by the government of India after this particular attack is called as the Nirbhaya Fund. What is Nirbhaya here? Nirbhaya here stands for fearless. This is a pseudonym that was given after the 2012 Delhi gang rape victim to hide her actual identity. Let's understand what this Nirbhaya Fund is all about. The Ministry of Finance set up this dedicated Nirbhaya Fund for implementation of all those initiatives that were aimed at enhancing the safety as well as the security of the women in the country by coming up with an initial corpus of about 1000 crores. So what is this fund basically? This is an initiative of the Ministry of the Finance where it will disperse the money so that this money can be used for all those important programs and schemes which will help in advancing or enhancing the safety and security of women. Another key point is this is a non-lapsable fund. What do we mean by it? Every year, the government of India comes up with the budget proposal. This budget proposal is accommodated for a particular program or a scheme. So all the money that is given to a particular department, to a particular ministry will have to be spent within 1 year, which means from the April of that particular year to the following year at the end of month, all the money that has been accommodated has to be spent within 1 year. If that particular ministry or department is not able to spend this particular money that is sanctioned for 1 year, this money will completely become lapsed, which means the government and the department will not be able to use this particular money. But when we say non-lapsable fund, it means even after 1 year of that particular program, it will be continued for the next concurrent number of years. For lapsable fund, it is used only for 1 year and it becomes lapsed. And if it is non-lapsable, it means they would be able to carry forward the money that has been dispersed in one year to next year. So this Nirbhaya Fund is the non-lapsable corpus fund. The fund is administered by the Department of Economic Affairs of the Finance Ministry. But please remember, it is the Ministry of Women and Child Development which is acting as the nodal agency which will look into whether this particular Nirbhaya Fund is used correctly. It will monitor, review and also look at the progress of the sanctioned number of schemes. So it is administered by the Department of Economic Affairs, but the Ministry of Women and Child Development is the nodal ministry to appraise the schemes under the Nirbhaya Fund. This fund, as laid out by the central government, can be used by different ministries as well as departments. Likewise, there are number of ministries which have come up with their own set of programs and schemes which will be impacting the women in a positive mode. And one of the important schemes of the Ministry of Women and Child Development under the Nirbhaya Fund is called as the One Stop Center. So what is this One Stop Center all about? What this will basically do is it will accommodate all those women who have gone through certain amount of violence in their personal lives. So it will establish centers to facilitate all those women affected by violence, which means when there is a woman who has undergone a lot of pain, who has undergone a lot of violence, physical abuse, then such women would be able to come up to this particular center and they'll immediately be administered with first aid, medical aid, police assistance, legal aid as well as counseling support. So this is one of the initiatives of the Ministry of Women and that is called as the One Stop Center. So a victim or a woman who's faced some physical violence would be immediately coming up to this center. So legal assistance and all support system will be provided by the Ministry of Women. Then there are other set of programs as well, like the universalization of women helpline and Mahila police volunteer initiated by this particular ministry. Apart from the Ministry of Women, the Ministry of Home Affairs has also come up with certain important initiatives. What are these? One is the Emergency Response Support System and the Central Victim Compensation Fund. First, let us try to understand what this emergency response support system is all about. Let's say there is a woman who is going through a lot of stress. She is not able to handle all these emotions. She is going through enormous amount of grief and pain. So she'll require immediate assistance. So what will she do? She immediately calls up this emergency number, and this emergency number will have an integrated computer aided emergency response platform. They'll immediately respond to this distress call and ensure speedy assistance to this distressed person. So what is the overall objective? So the women calls up this emergency number, they will address all the distress calls and immediately provide speedy assistance to this distressed person. Then another important program under the Ministry of Home Affairs is the Central Victim Compensation Fund. According to section 357 A of the Code of the Criminal Procedure, this particular section provides compensation for the victims of crime. So under this particular scheme, the victims of sexual crimes like rape, acid attacks and human trafficking will be entitled to compensation under this particular scheme. So the overall agenda of Nirbhaya Fund is there are different ministries, there are different programs from this particular ministry. So they would be able to take money out of this Nirbhaya Fund, come up with a program and implement this particular program so that this will impact that particular woman positively. But what is the present context? When you look at the present context, it says that states and union territories have utilized less than 20% of the budget that have been allocated under the Nirbhaya Fund, which means the amount of money that has been given to this Nirbhaya Fund is not utilized by the government sources and it is completely underutilized. Let's look at some of the statistics. As per the data of 854.66 crore released by the center, a mere 165.48 crore has been spent by various states and union territories on different schemes launched by the center. When you look at the statistical evidence of how these states and union territories have utilized it, the top 5 states ranked in utilization are, it includes Union Territory Chandigarh, states like Mizoram, Uttarakhand, Andhra Pradesh and Nagaland. And when it comes to the worst performers in using this Nirbhaya Fund, it includes Manipur, Maharashtra, Lakshadweep, which did not spend even a single penny, and were followed by West Bengal as well as Delhi. So what it means is that all these states and union territories are not effectively using this amount that have been sanctioned by the central government, and it also means that they are not looking at those important issues that the women are facing when it comes to violence. So what this article calls for is a change in the program implementation mode such that this money that has been sanctioned by the central government is also used by the state government so that it is ultimately delivered to the women who are in distress. Now let's look into the next article. This article says one nation, one ration card. Let's look into the context. The center has given a 1 year deadline, that is up to June 30th, 2020 to all states and union territories. So they should be able to roll out the service of one nation, one ration card from July 1, 2020, under which all beneficiaries can obtain food grains at subsidized rate from any ration shop across the length and breadth of India. Let's understand what this issue is all about. What is a ration card? A ration card is basically nothing but a document. This document is provided by the state government or the authorities of the particular state government for purchase of some essential commodities from the fair price shops. What are these fair price shops? This includes all those important PDS as well as targeted public distribution systems. So this ration card is issued per family. So kindly remember, it is not for an individual but to the entire family. Also remember, this ration card is voluntary and is not compulsory for the citizens. So only if the family wants it, they would be able to take this particular ration card by approaching the state government. So it is voluntary and not compulsory for citizens to acquire it. But let's say there is a family and there are individuals who want to be accommodated with some subsidized food, then it becomes mandatory, or else this is just voluntary and not compulsory for the citizens of India. So the state government, while issuing this particular ration card, has certain categories. What are these categories? This will basically involve the above poverty line, then it is followed by below poverty line as well as Antyodaya families. It is the onus of the state government to categorize people on this particular basis, and then ration cards and the subsidized food will be accommodated to all these individuals. What is Antyodaya here? So all those families which are poorest even among the BPL card holders, such families are called as Antyodaya families. So these families will be identified by the state governments, and it is these families who are entitled to get all the important food grains. When you look into the present context, the beneficiaries are tied up to a single state, which means they would be able to take the food items only from that particular state, and the ration card issued by one state is not accepted in another state. So it is legally restricted to a single district or a particular block in a particular state. Let's take an example. So there is a person, he is currently living in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So the state government of Madhya Pradesh has given the ration card to him. So he would be able to access the food grains only in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Now, if this person migrates to a new state, let's say the state of Maharashtra, he would not be able to get these subsidized food grains in the state of Maharashtra. So this is a major issue. This is a major flaw. This is a major concern. In order to address this, so that one person who is a part of BPL card holder or he is having particular ration card would be able to access anywhere in India. That is why this particular program of one nation, one ration card has been come up with. So the current flaw is he would be able to use only in a particular state, not across the length and breadth of India. So in order to address this issue, that is why the program of one nation, one ration card has been accommodated. So how does this particular program work? The beneficiaries here will have to show their Aadhaar cards to buy the food grains at subsidized rate in the ration shop. So what they'll have to do is, in this particular ration shop, there will be the point of sale machines. They'll have to give their Aadhaar card for the authentication. They'll have to give their fingerprint for authentication. and once their identity is authenticated, they would be provided food at subsidized rate. So this particular process of one nation, one ration will do away with the manual transactions, and going forward, what we will see is electronic record keeping. In order to accommodate such an electronic record keeping, the Food Ministry will also create a central online database, and this central database will record all the transactions to prevent any duplication of ration card. So this database, which is called as the integrated management of PDS, will be updated every time the beneficiary happens to take the subsidized food grains. So this new mechanism would ensure that no poor person would be deprived of the PDS entitlements in case this person happens to move from one state to another. So this measure is primarily intended at all those migrant workers who are moving from one state to another. Majority of the poor people are the migrant workers, and these people are not accommodated with the PDS when they move from one state to another. So this will address the key concern that was seen by the migrant workers. The system would also help remove all the fake ration cards, which will remove the ghost IDs, and instead all those people who are eligible for it would be getting the subsidized food grains going forward. So the major point is, one is it will help the migrant workers, it will also remove and delete all the fake ration card, it will also cut down on the corruption in the public distribution by reducing the number of ghost accounts as well as the beneficiaries who are illegally added within this particular system. So this is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about black money. Let's look into the context. The context here says the Standing Committee on Finance recently came out with a report called as Status of Unaccounted Income and Wealth both inside and outside the country. So this particular report came out by the Standing Committee on Finance also came to a conclusion that it looked into multiple think tanks, and after analyzing multiple folds and report, it came to a conclusion there is no reliable way to quantify the black data. So this report says there is no one particular methodology, there is no one particular method to see what is the amount of black money that is present in India as well as outside India. First, let's understand the definition of black money. There is no universal definition of black money. So this black money, which is also called as parallel economy, black incomes, unaccounted money, unaccounted economy, and irregular economy, has multiple definitions, but one of the simplest of the simple definition means that there is the government which conducts all its activities for the people. So for the government to conduct its operations and activities, it will require money. So what does the government do? It will enforce a taxation. So all the individuals, corporations, organizations within India will have to pay certain amount of money because the government will have to accommodate them with services. So in case there is an individual or an organization who is not paying this particular money, so he is hiding this particular money from the tax authorities, such people are having what is called as black money. So what it means is the government enforces the taxation, and in case people evade the fees, evade the money that they are supposed to pay back to the government, such money is what is called as black money. There are two types of black money. So what is it? One is called as the illegal black money. The other is called as the legal but unreported black money. So what is illegal black money? So all those individuals, organizations and institutions which are not supposed to conduct such an activity which is banned by that particular government is called as illegal black money. Let's take some of the examples to understand what this illegal black money is all about. Production and distribution of any of the prohibited goods like the drugs is one such thing. And when it comes to services, there is prostitution, counterfeit currency, arms and human trafficking. So when there is provisioning of goods and services which is currently banned by the government, such thing is what is called as illegal black money. Now let's understand what is legal but unreported black money. Let's say there is a person who happens to be owning a particular land. So he has to sell this particular property to another person who is the buyer of this particular property. So there are two individuals. One is the seller, the other one is the buyer. Let's say the price of this particular land is valued at about 1 crore. So this particular buyer is supposed to pay the seller 1 crore. But what happens in this particular transaction is, when there is this transaction, the buyer has to pay the seller 1 crore. But what does he do? He pays about 60 lakh for this particular land in a digital way, or in a way that is prescribed by the government. This can be in the form of DD, this can be in the form of check, or via the digital transaction. Then there is another 40 lakhs which he pays in the form of cash, and this cash which is paid by the buyer to the seller is not accounted to the government. So all the tax that this particular person, that is the seller, is paying is only for 60 lakh, but this 40 lakh that he is getting in the form of cash is unaccounted money, where he is not paying any tax to the government. Such a process is what is called as legal but unreported black money. Ideally, you should have paid the tax for the entire 1 crore, but he is paying the tax only for the 60 lakh but not for the 40 lakh. Such money is what is called as legal but unreported black money. Now let's understand what are the various methods that government uses to gauge the value of this particular black money in the economy. Basically, there are three important types. First, let's understand the monetary method or the currency demand approach. So what is this monetary method all about? As we all know, there is a digital transaction where one person transfers money to another person via the banking channels. Then there is DD or checkbook, so on and so forth. All these are legal provisions, so the government would be able to know what are the transactions done by that particular individual. But in case that particular individual does not want to come under the eyes of the government, what does he do? He conducts his transaction by giving the cash to another person. So if the increase in the cash over a period of time in the economy happens, that is when it is called as the monetary method. So what does the government do here? The government will basically set one of the benchmark year, or what is called as the base year. So it would know what is the amount of money that has been transacted in that particular base year. So let's say in the current year, the amount of transaction in comparison to the base year is comparatively increased with respect to the cash transaction. Then the government would be able to come to a conclusion that illegal money has been channelized into the economy. Then there is another approach called as the input output ratio. So what is this input output ratio? For a particular amount of input, a country should be producing certain amount of goods as output. If the output is less, then it means there is underreporting to an extent. Let's take the simple example. Let's take the example of Maharashtra, and let's take the example of Bombay, and let's look into a particular locality. Let's say there is construction of new houses that is happening in this particular locality. So what we will have to do is, we will have to count the number of houses that are built in Bombay and estimate how much cement is required for construction of all these houses in this particular place of Bombay. Now what do we have to do is, we will also have to make a list of cement suppliers within that particular city and see how much they have sold as per the tax records. Now what happens in this particular mechanism is, let's say these are hypothetical numbers. To build a particular house in that particular city, or to build number of houses in that particular city, let's say this will require about 100 tons of cement. This is again hypothetical numbers, so this will require about 100 tons of cement. Now these cement suppliers have also given a particular data to the central government as well as the state government. According to this particular data, let's say this is about 50 tons as per the data provided by the cement suppliers to the government. So what is the difference here? The difference is about 50 tons, which means that this 50 tons difference that we currently have has been taking the route of black money, which means all these people are either supplying cash, or this means there is underreporting by the cement manufacturers according to this particular approach. So what this means is that there is illegal money or black money that is running the economy. But another important point is, this method fails to account for changes in the structure of the economy, efficiency as well as technology. The third approach that is discussed under this particular article is called as straightforward approach. In this particular approach, there will be conduction of survey by a particular team or an organization. Here, people as well as business outfit conceal their incomes and they only reveal such a thing in the survey. So such data is also supplied to the government under this particular survey. So basically there are three important approaches. One is monetary method, next is input output ratio, the third is the straightforward approach. So in order to address the menace of black money, the government has taken number of steps. Some of the steps that the government has taken up is in the form of legislative mechanism. This includes the laws that the government has come up with in order to ensure that the issue of black money is addressed. What are these? The government has come up with Central Goods and Service Tax Act, the various GST acts at the state level, the Black Money Undisclosed Foreign Income and Assets Imposition of Tax Act of 2015, the Binami Transaction Amendment Act, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act are some of the legislative protocols that the government has come up with. Apart from this, the government has also come up with administrative mechanisms as well as systems improvement. What are these? That is expanding the ambit of tax deduction at the source. This is one of the major initiatives taken by the government. Apart from this, there are also international cooperative mechanisms like the Intergovernmental Agreement between India and USA, which recently signed Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Then there is amendment of Direct Taxation Avoidance Agreement between India and Mauritius. Then an amendment to India-Singapore Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement as well. So this has been done at three important levels. One is at international level, at the administrative level, as well as at the legislative level. So this is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article is speaking about one of the missions that has been taken by NASA, and that is called as the Punch mission. So what does this Punch stand for? It stands for Polarimeter to Unify the Corona and Heliosphere. Let's try and understand what this issue is all about. One of the basic objectives or the mission of this particular program is to study about coronal mass ejections. So what are these coronal mass ejections? These are nothing but massive eruptions of electrically charged particles that are coming up from the sun's atmosphere. But why are these coronal mass ejections being studied by NASA? This is because these ejections are so powerful that they would be able to have negative impact on the satellite operations, disrupt the entire communication channel and also the GPS navigation signals. Apart from what is happening in the outer space in terms of the satellite, they would also be able to enter the earth occasionally and also damage the systems on the ground like the power plants. So in order to ensure that all these satellite communication systems and the GPS signals are intact, and in order to protect the ground stations like the power plants, the investigators and scientists would be able to take certain precautions for the space as well as the ground based electronics. That is why NASA is studying this particular entity. So basically it is studying the coronal mass ejections from the sun so that it can reduce the impact that it can cause on the satellite as well as the ground based electronics. Apart from this, the Punch mission will also track and image the solar wind as it emerges from the solar corona. So what this Punch mission basically will do is, it will also study the space weather. Just like we have the normal weather in the atmosphere, which is also having fluctuations and changes, and it will have its own impact. There are things that are also happening in the space, which means there are changes which can lead to because of the solar wind that is present in the space weather. So what this particular mission will also study is, it will study the impact of the solar wind, why it becomes gusty as well as turbulent as it reaches the earth. In order to make this mission a successful implementation program, this will consist of 4 microsats that will orbit the earth in formation and study how the corona, which is the atmosphere of the sun, connects with the interplanetary medium. So this program of Punch mission will be launched in the year 2022. Apart from this, This article is also speaking about NASA's Parker Solar Probe, the ESA NASA joint project that is called as Solar Orbiter, which is due to be launched in 2020, which can study the structure of the sun's atmosphere. But this punch mission enhances the tracking by real-time information. So those missions are not able to provide the real-time calculations, but this mission of punch will be providing the real-time situation and real-time calculations is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, why are monsoons difficult to predict? One of the important concepts from this article is about El Nino. A detailed analysis of El Nino has been discussed on 26 February 2019 under the first topic, drought unlikely due to weak El Nino. Please go through this particular video. Rest of the things that is mentioned in this article with respect to the statistical model, the dynamic model, how it works is not in perspective of the UPSC. So this is not of importance. But the concept of El Nino is very important. So kindly go through this particular video. Let's look into the next article. This article, should India stay with RCEP, has already been explained on 25th June 2019 under the first topic. It's premature to count India out of RCEP, so kindly look into it. Now let's look into some of the practice question. The Indian satellite to study the sun's corona is Aditya L1. Let's look into the next practice question. Satyamangalam Wildlife Sanctuary is in the state of Tamil Nadu. Why have we picked this up? Because there is an article which says wildlife survey begins at Tamil Nadu Tiger Reserve. So this Satyamangalam Tiger Reserve and the wildlife sanctuary is a protected area and tiger reserve along the Western Ghats in the Erode district of Tamil Nadu. Kindly remember, it is the largest wildlife sanctuary in Tamil Nadu. Let's look into the next practice question. Dendrochronology is the scientific study of dating tree rings to the exact year they were formed. Why have we picked this up? There is an article which says climate change guide, and that is speaking about dendrochronology. Let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are landlocked seas? Tyrrhenian Sea, Aral Sea, Caspian Sea, Dead Sea, Ligurian Sea and Salton Sea. The answer to this is 2, 3, 4 and 6 only. Let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following had first deciphered the edicts of Emperor Ashoka? The answer to this is James Princip. Let's look into the mains practice question. Black money in India is a major roadblock for advancement of social and economical prosperity. Identify the various loopholes in the system and also suggest measures. So please write all your answers on the comment section so that you guys can peer review amongst yourself and come up with relevant feedback for the same. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.